based on just his own feelings.
But the thing of it is, that was her influence because he was not that prickly when I grew up with him. He was not somebody who was super sensitive, easily offended or whatever. I'm not saying he wouldn't get mad at us, but he wasn't imagining slights the way that he got later
Well,
after he knew Mary.
You can understand. Mary was black,
Oh yeah.
and she was, on tenterhooks in terms of any slight.
Oh yeah. Well, as I said, he told me that when I came out for that July 4th. He told me that in the car. Be careful with Mary. She's hypersensitive, and we can't have any friends because every time we go to somebody's house for dinner, she will come back and say they don't like me, and I'll say, what do you mean they don't like you? Yes, they don't like me because I'm black. He says we can't have any relationships with anybody, any friendships.
That's right. Because she was super sensitive, and I'm sure that some of the people that she crossed off her list as being racist weren't even aware of anything that they had said that could be misinterpreted. But,
Including me.
But if you're that super sensitive, you see things even when they're not there.
So, if you'll take a few minutes in a stream of consciousness way and maybe just think of Dad chronologically through the years, just various memories that you have of him, starting with the one that you shared yesterday about Pappy taking you to the hospital, and then just proceeding through the years.
Okay, well, when on the way to the hospital, Pappy warned me not to be frightened or shocked or anything if the new baby was very pink, because newborn babies are apt to be pink. And we got to the hospital, and I was expecting a pink baby, and Harlan looked like a yellow baby, and I said, take him back, you got the wrong baby, he's Chinese.
That's really funny.
I don't know that he was really yellow, but compared with the pink baby that I was expecting, he looked yellow. Anyway, he and I were very close when we were both young, and he used to follow me around, and anything I wanted to do, he wanted to do. And I think I told you once when I was over at my friend's house, and she had a porch with a railing, and she and somebody else I guess, were taking turns jumping off the railing down to the lawn below, and so he wanted to do it too. I think he probably was around 4 at the time, and he did it, and he sprained his ankle, and so that was one of many reasons Nana was always mad at me. I shouldn't have let him jump, whatever. But one of the funny things was that he would imitate whatever I liked or didn't like, and especially at dinner, it put a little strain on the relationship, because if I said, oh, carrots, I don't like carrots, he'd say, I don't like carrots either. And so then he wouldn't eat them, and then my mother would kick me under the table, and I'd say, oh, but they're carrots with butter, why didn't you say so? And he'd say, yeah, why didn't you say so? So, then he'd have carrots, and I'd have carrots. Anyway, but he would follow me around and want to do whatever I was doing. And it was a mixed blessing for me, because I loved him and I liked having him around, but there were times I would just as soon not have a little boy around. But he didn't understand any of that, so wherever I was, that's where he wanted to be. And we were very close. But I was 7 years older, so by the time I was in high school, I guess I was 12, so he was 5. It became a little tiresome to have a kid around when you want to talk with your buddies, and he wanted to be part of every conversation. And then, of course, when I got married, I moved to Florida, and I guess I didn't see much of him from the time I was, 15 or 16. I guess we grew apart when I was in high school. I had my own friends, and he was a little kid that was always wanted to put in, you know, this kind of thing, so. But I think we always had a warm feeling towards one another. I don't remember his having a relationship of any kind, good, bad, or indifferent, with my sister. And part of that, of course, was that she was in high school, and she was a very serious student, and she'd shut herself up in the bedroom and be reading or something. And she didn't want anything to do with anybody. She wanted to study. But,
Was he spoiled at all, being the baby of the family?
well, he was not only the baby of the family, he was the only boy. Combination gave him all kinds of special privileges. So the things that I might have done and gotten punished for, he could do and be forgiven because after all, he's only a baby, you know. But that didn't bother me because I was very fond of him. And the fact that he was given privileges didn't affect me much. If Marion had gotten privileges and I didn't, I would be mad. But if he was given privileges, it didn't bother me. And as I said, he was not only the baby, but the only boy, so I gave him a real vantage point that we didn't have.
So when he was 18, he went right into the service.
When he was 18, he went right into the service. And
You would have been 25, so you were living probably down in Cuba?
I
or-
was in Florida at the time, yeah. But you know, he was 18 when he was in the service, and that year marked the total change in his disposition and personality. Because before he was in the service, he was a very loving child
Kind of happy-go-lucky.
with a very easygoing disposition, happy-go-lucky. You would never recognize him. I mean, that was the side of him you never saw because he didn't have it anymore. But, you know, my recollection of him as a child was that he was very, very easy to get along with. And he was very friendly and optimistic and cheerful. Things you never saw when he was older. And he liked everybody. And I remember that he had beautiful hair.
Very wavy black hair.
And when I would wheel him around, you know, town, people would stop and say, "Oh, what a lovely boy, and what pretty hair." And he heard that so many times that when you'd ask him about his face or something like that, you'd say, "Where's your nose? Where are your eyes? Yeah. And where's your chin? And what's up here?" And he'd say, "Pretty hair." You know, that was the name. He didn't know it was an adjective. So there's eyes, nose, and pretty hair. But he did. He had auburn curls and was lovely. And people would always stop and say, what a pretty child and what pretty hair. So obviously that was the name of what was on his head, pretty hair. But he had a very easygoing disposition at that time. And he was very open and friendly to anybody. People would stop and, you know, look at the carriage and, you know, comment on him. And he always gave them a big warm smile. Certainly different from the Harlan you knew.
And he loved music growing up in his teen years. He told me stories about how much he loved Sinatra, that he worked in a record store, and he even told me on more than one occasion how somebody would come in and say, "Do you have the latest Sinatra record?" And he had this ability. He would go over and say, "I've got one left." And he would go over and get it, and as he would walk to them, he would twirl it on his fingers and say, "Yep, this is the last one I have." And he'd twirl it like this as if it were going to fall in a second, and they'd go, "Oh!" But I mean, he actually had told me that story on more than once.
I remember his coming home and saying something like, "You gotta watch this guy, he's going places." This one, you know, before Sinatra was famous or anything. And he had heard it in the music store and said, you know, take note of this name, he's gonna be famous someday.
Now, Pappy spent a lot of time with Dad growing up. Did they spend a lot of time? Dad seems to have memories, or at least shared with me, going to ball games with Pappy. Apparently, that was a real bonding experience that they had. Their love of the Dodgers.
Yeah, they both were in love with the Dodgers. I don't remember. I don't remember they going to bowl games, but that's my memory. But I remember that the first thing either one of them did when he came home was to make sure the radio was on so they could hear what the Dodgers did that day. So everybody in the family became a Dodger fan. That was certainly one of the things that they shared.
So he went away to war, and you probably didn't hear from him a lot for a while, did you?
I'll tell you something that I remember, and I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but it was cute. When he was in high school, there was some girl that liked him, and she asked him to send her a picture of himself. And he sent her an X-ray. Which I thought was very funny.
Yeah. That's quite.
I never did hear what her reaction was.
That's quite a sense. Well, that's a good way of sifting if you really want to know what the girl thinks.
Anyway, I thought it showed quite a good sense of humor.
Absolutely.
Whether or not she thought it did, I don't know. But he was really a very loving child, very warm and open and friendly, very different from the Harlan you knew.
So you went a number of years without really having much contact with him, I suppose. After you went to Florida and he went to war, you probably didn't really have much correspondence with him or contact of any kind.
No, but we were close when we were young. And once we both became adults, we almost never were in the same place or anywhere near the same place.
That's right. We were only in Los Angeles sporadically, and in Guam for 5 years, and in the Virgin Islands for 5 or 6 years, and then in Miami for several years.
Yeah, we weren't in the same place.
But you noticed right away when he returned from the war, was it apparent to you that he was a very changed person?
Oh yeah, very changed. He was sarcastic and bitter, and that was a total change from the kid with the lovely disposition. That disposition just disappeared. And of course at the time I was too unsophisticated or unaware of what war did to people. And I found it very hard to understand how he could have become such a changed person.
Did Nana or Pappy ever talk about that with you? Did you ever have conversations where they said, "What's happened to this guy?" Or was it just not spoken?
In the Pig family, nobody ever talked about anything meaningful.
That's true.
Just had to keep everything very light. I remember one time Pappy saying to me, whenever you have a problem, you can come to me with any problem. Once you're in control of yourself. And I remember thinking as I went out, once I'm in control of myself, I don't need anybody.
That's really
It's when
good.
I'm out of control that I need somebody.
That's a great insight.
But, you know, Pappy's emphasis was always on self-control.
Sure.
Emotion should never rule. In that respect, he and Sam were totally opposite. He was so moderate and Sam was so immoderate.